What skills outside of finance do you wish you'd learned or do you use most in your job?
Oh, we're going to start on the second thing. I would say outside of finance, the skill that I use most is relationship management. What I quickly learned, especially in the Southwest here, is that there are probably more opportunities for sales-related finance jobs, which is what I do, is working with clients. You still do a lot of financial analysis, but it's in the framework of doing it to meet the needs of a client. Usually the client's asking a question, it could be managing their portfolio, and it's all within that framework versus what you might think of traditionally as a portfolio manager up in New York, maybe managing a hedge fund or a mutual fund. You don't generally see as much of that here in the Southwest. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's usually less of those jobs available. And I'd say the biggest learning for me is that work on relationship management skills. They're very critical to success in the industry. I think that probably applies to really any field, and it's not only building relationships with clients, but with coworkers. It helps you be more efficient in the job that you do. If you run into a problem, if you spend the time earlier to build relationships, you might go someplace you don't solve. So I'd say that's probably the number one skill that you might not develop in your traditional finance background, but it's something important to have for success.
I would agree with that completely. When I left Honeywell and went into a financial planning firm, I was so naive that I didn't realize it was a sales position, basically. You got to persuade people to give you their money and entrust it to you. So I really had a slow start in the business. I had to transform my personality. I'm introverted by nature, so I really had to push myself to get to the point where I was comfortable with people and asking them very personal, not only family questions, but financial questions. Once I got past those barriers, I was really off to the races, and it's been to this day. I learn something new every day from people about interacting, and everybody's individual, so you got to figure out how to connect with them, and that will serve you in whatever field you find yourself in, finance or otherwise.
And I agree with both, with Richard and David, and I would expand on it to say, when you walk out here and you start your first job, whether that's somewhere you stay for the next 10 years or 5 years, when you think about the people skills or the soft skills that you're going to need to be successful and take whatever analytical abilities and problem-solving skills you have to ultimately transfer that information to other people, right? And so from day one, you're building your brand. And a brand is really hard to change. You can think of that from any of your marketing classes. You can think of it from companies that have tried and been unsuccessful. So opposite to Rich, I can give you an example. I'm an extrovert. I'm very driven, very type A, and it's always been something that really helped me do well in school because it helped me keep motivated and push through, and especially competing with, to get information or to get help. And then, it can also go too far, though, right? It can be abrasive, or, it can rub people the wrong way, right? You have to style flex. Just because I have a routine way of interacting and I've had successes using that style doesn't mean it always works. And you have to understand and do a lot of self-reflection to say, what are my natural ways of communicating with people? And what are my limitations and what are my strengths? And then from the first second, when you're saying hello to someone, whether it's internal or an external stakeholder, you need to start looking for those context clues on how is it that they relate? What is the way that I need to inflex? Or you may unintentionally, we can think of other ways people might brand someone that is an extrovert and aggressive, right? They don't want to be seen as someone that's hard to work with or territorial. But you can see how easy those things can get assigned to you. And we could go any which way, right? If I'm too soft-spoken, as unengaged, but ultimately, your brand will stick with you forever. It'll get you your next job within the company, outside of the company. And the way you really build that brand is flexing your style and understanding how important that is to translate your technical skill into information, right, that people can use to make decisions. Because whether you go into corporate finance or into financial services, that is always going to be a support organization. You're always going to be working with other people's money and be responsible for influencing them to make decisions. And so the people skills will be critical for success.
More to that, and it's the ability to influence and persuade others. At least at Vanguard, I can't speak to Intel and to UBS, but many of the major decisions are made by committee. Everyone's a stakeholder, so you might have 10, 15, possibly even 20 people involved in the ultimate decision. You might have the best idea in the world, but if you can't sell it to the rest of those individuals, it'll never happen. So part of being successful in the corporate world isn't just being smart and knowing the technical knowledge, but it's finding a way to communicate it and to win people over and get people to buy in and agree with your idea. And I think that applies not only internally, but you think about trying to sell a client on letting you manage their money. It's sales. That's really what it comes down to. And it's important to have that technical knowledge. It certainly lends credibility, but you also need